Good evening or good afternoon. I would like to call to order the August 1st, 2022 meeting of the Charleston County Board of Zoning Appeals, also known as the BZA. The board members who will hear your case tonight are myself, Vice Chair Joe Boykin. To my right, I have Mr. Jordan, Mr. Freeman, and Mr. Marchant, and seated to my left is Mr. Woodle. Staff members present are Ms. Leah Applewhite, Sally Brooks, Josh Downey, Savannah Murray, and Jenny Working. Seated to my right is the BZA's attorney, Mr. Kevin Hughie. Because of the hearing tonight is a fact-finding meeting, we are in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act and the South Carolina Code 6-29-70. 15 days prior to this hearing, an announcement was printed in the Post and Courier, a sign was posted on or near the designated property, and a notice was mailed to the applicant or the applicant's representative, to property owners within at least 300 feet of the property, and to parties of interest. Persons, organizations, and the news media that have requested declaration of our meeting have also been notified. Board members, the meeting notes for the July 11th, 2022 public hearing were mailed to you. Are there any changes? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Minutes are approved. Our case rulings from this and any BZA meeting are available for public review and inspection during normal business hours at the Charleston County Zoning and Planning Department. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial body that has final decision-making authority on appeals of zoning-related administrative decisions. The BZA is authorized to hear and decide appeals only on zoning-related matters where it is alleged there is an error in any order, requirement, decision, or determination made by an administrative official in the administration or enforcement of any of the zoning-related regulations. A 2/3 vote of the quorum present is required to overturn the decision of the planning director in an appeal. A special exception is an exception issued by the BZA authorizing a particular use in a specified location within a zoning district, upon demonstrating that such use complies with all the conditions and standards specified by the Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance, or ZLDR. The BZA must find that the special exception request meets all 6 of the approval criteria in the ordinance in order to grant the special exception. A simple majority is required to grant a special exception. A variance is a relaxation by the BZA of the dimensional regulations of the ordinance where such action will not be contrary to the public interest and where, owing to conditions peculiar to the property and not the results of actions or the situation of the applicant, a literal enforcement of this code would result in unnecessary and undue hardship, and such variance is consistent with Section 6-29-800 of the Code of Laws of South Carolina, Title 6, Chapter 29. The BZA must find that the ordinance request meets all 7 of the approval criteria in the ordinance in order to grant the variance. A 2/3 vote of the quorum present is required to grant a variance. Our purpose tonight is for interested parties to be heard in order to assist the board in gathering evidence pertinent to each case. If the members of the BZA feel the need for further information to clarify a case, the board has the authority to subpoena witnesses. It must be understood that the rules of your neighborhood or subdivision are binding and that we can take no action that will negate their jurisdiction over your property. In addition to your testimony, our board has been presented written information submitted to the staff by the applicant or the applicant's agent for each case. This information is now considered to be evidence and is entered into the permanent record of this body. It is assumed that it is complete, true, and accurate. In addition, we have been presented data assembled by the staff for the purpose of clarifying the location and the applicant's effect on surrounding property. Our board is empowered to approve with conditions, or to deny a special exception or variance request. We are also authorized to defer a case should there be need to obtain additional information. The BZA's final decision will be mailed within 10 working days of this public hearing. It will be mailed via certified mail to applicants and via the United States Mail to neighbor and community interest notice lists. If an applicant's request is approved, the applicant should contact Charleston County Zoning and Planning Department staff to discuss the next step in the process. Variances and special exceptions granted this evening are valid for 12 months after this meeting, and a 1-year extension may be granted only if construction or development has commenced or is being diligently pursued. However, if an applicant's request is disapproved and the applicant wishes to appeal the decision of this board concerning the case, the appeals must be addressed to the circuit court. South Carolina Code 6-29-820 states that the appeal must be filed by the applicant within 30 days after the decision of the board is mailed to them. Failure to file an appeal within the time limit deprives the court of the jurisdiction to hear the matter. Because this is a quasi-judicial body, everything said in this meeting must be complete, true, and accurate. All of the information provided to the BZA is considered evidence, and this board may certify contempt of circuit court if false statements are made either in writing or orally. Each person who wishes to address the board will be sworn in by the BZA secretary before they provide testimony or evidence. In order to expedite this procedure, those wishing to speak will please now stand as a group, and Ms. Working will minister the oath.
Okay. Please stand and raise your right hand. I will say the oath and you will say I do. I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Working. I will now call each case by the case number. Staff will present facts pertinent to the case, limited to 5 minutes. I will then call the applicant. The applicant will stand and come forward and state his or her name and current address for the record before presenting testimony pertinent to the case, limited to 5 minutes. I will then ask for all those speaking either in support or in opposition to the case, and they will follow the same procedure for identifying themselves and are limited to 2 minutes each. The applicant will then have a chance to reply to any opposition, and that will be limited to 2 minutes. And then the BZA will make a motion to close the case to the public. Finally, the BZA will make a motion concerning the application, stating specific findings of fact and conclusions of law. Tonight, we will hear 1 old business case and 4 new public hearing cases. Ms. Working, can you please introduce the old business hearing case, BZA-05-21-00497?
Yes. A special exception application for the sale of alcoholic beverages on site, beer, wine, and liquor in a restaurant in the St. Andrews Overlay Community Commercial Zoning District was approved with conditions on July 12th, 2021 for a property located at 652 St. Andrews Boulevard, TMS number 418-15-00032 in the St. Andrews area of Charleston County. The applicant and property owner, Carly Pum of Mason Pum LLC, requests an amendment to condition number 3, hours of operation 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., to change the hours of operation to 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. The BZA will vote tonight if they would like to hear the request to consider amending condition number 3 of the final decision in order. If that motion passes, the proposed amendment will be scheduled for your next meeting, which is September 12th, the BZA public hearing agenda under old business. And this one, I don't know if you can remember or not, but there was a lot of discussion about the hours and making them more flexible. However, the ownership has now changed. That owner agreed to those more strict hours, but now there's a new owner that would like to serve breakfast. But we'll hear more about that if you guys decide to vote to hear it next month.
On this matter, we won't be hearing public comment. This will be just for us to decide to
schedule it.
schedule
next
it.
month.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. All right. Hearing that, can I have a motion Mr. Marchant, that's very apropos. This issue you brought up at that very case.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the applicant the opportunity to hear their case on September 12th at our next BZA meeting.
May I have a second? All right. We have a first and a second. Can we get a vote? All those in favor of approving Mr. Marchant's motion, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. It will be set for that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right. Ms. Murray?
All right. Here we have case BZA 06-22-00590. The applicant and property owner, John Distefano, has filed a special exception request for a proposed affordable attached dwelling unit development in Ashley River Corridor Overlay, low-density residential R4 zoning district at 1819 Wallace Lane in St. Andrews area of Charleston County. The TMS number is 351-0200-0021. This next slide shows some definitions that are going to become important to us later on in the evening. I'll hold off on reviewing those for now. Here are the sections of the zoning ordinance where it states that affordable and workforce dwelling units are allowed with conditions, and also stating that duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and single-family detached dwelling units are allowed with a special exception. So this map shows the Ashley River Road Corridor Overlay Zoning District. The property that we're looking at is located in the village commercial area of the zoning district and has a single-family residential zoning designation. Here is the zoning map showing the subject property being in the Charleston County Overlay Zoning District with residential R4 zoning. It's surrounded by parcels in the City of Charleston's jurisdiction. The subject property is a total of 1.25 acres and is currently vacant. It's in the site plan review process for the proposed affordable attached dwelling units. The site plan that we will see tonight is conceptual, and if the BZA approves this request, we will be looking at whether we will allow the duplex, triplex, fourplex, single-family attached dwellings as defined. So here's a zoomed-in aerial view of the property. And here is a zoomed-out aerial view of the property. Here are some pictures of the subject property on the frontages. And here's some more of the subject property. This is showing the one of the adjacent neighbors and the other adjacent property on the corner. This other one is on the other corner, and then this is directly on the Ashley River Road. Here's Wallace Lane, Richmond Street, and then Ashley River Road. So staff believes that this request meets criteria 1, and it may meet 2, 3, 4, and 5. The Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny case BZA 06-22-00590, special exception request for proposed affordable attached dwelling unit development. If the board chooses to approve, staff recommends the following criteria. 1, prior to zoning permit approval, to establish the affordable attached dwelling unit use, the applicant shall complete site plan review process. And 2, the approval for the affordable attached dwelling unit use only, and the dwelling type shall be limited to multifamily dwelling types of duplex, triplex, fourplex, and or single-family attached dwellings. Here's a copy of the site plan, and again, this is conceptual. And here's the plat. Any questions of staff?
Does the board have any questions of staff? Mr. Marchant?
Ms. Murray, forgive my lack of interpretation of Zeldar, but tell me exactly why the appeal is needed for this from the ordinance. I was just looking at that earlier.
Okay, so there's two reasons. One is because of the affordable and workforce dwelling units is allowed, but and I'd have to go pull up the ordinance to tell you specifically, but it's conditional. And so these, the triplex, duplex, fourplex, those are special exceptions just to ensure, that we go back through and make sure that it's appropriate in that specific area. So it's allowed, just with a little extra assistance.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions by the board? Thank you, Ms. Murray. Is the applicant present here tonight? Mr. Distefano? Stefano, would you please come forward? If you'll please state your name and your address.
P. John Distefano, 1910 Capri Drive, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407.
Okay, if you would, please tell this board why we should approve your request.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity. We are seeking a special exemption for the opportunity, not necessarily the absolute, but the opportunity to explore the construction primarily of anywhere from 2 to 3 duplex units to be mixed into what is basically a single-family residential. These units are not going to be for rent. These units are, this is a project we've been working on for 3 years. It's taken us 3 years to get to here. By right, we could go in and with the affordable, the bonus density, the smaller lot size that is offered, we could do single family, but we can't get the price point attractive enough to using just single family. Again, want to emphasize this is fee simple, single family. This is all privately done. There's no public money involved. When the ZLDR was amended in October, it did open up this avenue to come before you and request the exemption for a duplex, triplex, fourplex. We looked at the fourplex, we looked at the triplex. It doesn't work. We feel like the duplex would be beneficial in that it allows us, and I know density is a terrible word, but it's all through the comprehensive plan that to get affordable housing where it needs to be and quit institutionalizing it. Density is not necessarily a bad thing here. We've got, and I'm sorry, the layout you've got, again, was very conceptual. It was done probably 6 months ago. Since then, we've revised that. We've gone back and looked at the lot sizes. The iteration we have now would be a maximum of maybe 3 duplex units, and with the remaining 6 units being single family. These units will all be, fenced, private drives, landscaped. That's where we are right now. So the exemption really is just with the spirit of going along with the spirit of the new ZLDR to increase the density to a point where we can get these units affordable, make them more affordable. The target market is our school teachers, our firefighters, first responders, food and bev people. It is located in an ideal, the location is good, is central to healthcare, is central to transportation, is central to schools. So that is, in a nutshell, really what the exemption request is for, to get the numbers to pencil.
Okay. Well, thank you. If you'll stay right there for just a moment.
Yes, sir.
Does any of the members of the board have a question for the applicant? Go ahead, Mr. Freeman.
I thought I heard you earlier, you said you didn't plan to rent these units out. Did I misunderstood you?
Pardon me, sir?
You said you didn't plan to rent these units out? I thought I heard that earlier.
No, sir. These are fee simple. They will not be for rent. We're not taking ownership. Once they're developed, there is a list a mile long of individuals looking to buy their first home that would hopefully, given the current economic situation, where we wanted to hit was the 80 to 100% of the area median income. That's proving to be challenging today. Maybe in 6 months that will have eased a little bit. But no, these are not for rent. This is we have our bank has a list. The city of Charleston has a list. I'm sure the county soon will have a list of individuals who are looking to purchase their first home.
Mr. Jordan?
So I haven't heard you use the word for sale. They will be for sale?
Yes, sir. They are fee simple for sale.
He's saying fee simple.
And inclusive with that, of course, comes deed restrictions that if the house is purchased as an affordable under the affordability program, that there's going to be a deed restriction on that property that it can't be resold in a year for a 50% profit. And we're exploring the other deed restrictions to keep what you're talking about, an investor coming in and turning around and renting them. That's not the development we're doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Stefano, I'll ask a quick question. I think I heard this right. I was shocked, but not surprised. Did I hear the other day that the average home price in Charleston County is $500,000?
Pretty close.
Yeah, okay.
Pretty close. Our target when we first started, our target was like 287. Unfortunately, that price, and again, this is just based on the current economic situation, that price is up into the low threes. To still, and that's going to even be pushing it really to get to that 80%, 80 to 100%. That's where we need to be.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Mr. Marchant?
Mr. Distefano, thank you for coming tonight. I have a question about the grand trees that you referenced under one of the criteria, and I think it's mostly just to limit our need for you to come back and to limit your need to come back. But
Yes, sir.
Because you're early in the design process, you feel pretty confident about saving those trees and not having to go through this process
Yeah,
again.
since the application, the arborist has been out. There are some specimen trees, but they are on the perimeter. They are not going to be impacted by the construction. The one exception would be it is a specimen tree, but it is, again, not within the confines of the construction. So we're fairly confident we're not going to we won't have to disturb. The only exception would be it's in very close proximity of where the drainage is planned for the site, between basically where the street would end. That design you have, that street comes in, and then we have the retention pond kind of as a buffer, and also utilizing a portion of the buffer between the end of the road and Ashley River Road. There is a grand tree almost at the head of the road there.
Yeah, I see.
That the canopy, and again, the latest layout has maybe 3 feet of that canopy just over the edge of the road. So we're not expecting that it's going to be a problem. We can work around it if need be.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you,
You'll
sir.
have a seat.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir. At this time, I'll ask for anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application to please raise your hand. All right. Don't have anybody. All right. Then I'll ask if there's anyone here in opposition that would like to be heard. Would you please raise your hand? Okay. I'll start right up here first. You, sir, on the aisle. Come on up.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name's Jerome Bennett. I built a home in this neighborhood.
Sir, please give us
I
your
built
address.
a home in this neighborhood.
Sir,
Beg your pardon?
please give us your address.
1833 Wallace Lane.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I built a home in this neighborhood about 22 years ago. I've lived back there all of my young life. My father bought another home maybe a quarter mile down the street on Highway 61. And so I know the neighborhood real well. We've given up half of the neighborhood to the Mark Park Expressway. Okay? This was a poor neighborhood that we've inhabited over 100 years. So we are against this zoning. The committee feels Mr. Distefano bought the property knowing it was single-family residential. I don't go to McLaurin Hall and buy a lot and say, I want to open a 7-Eleven. Okay? I have to abide by the zoning in the neighborhood. But rather than abide by the zoning and build 6 single-family residential homes, that's not enough profit, I guess, listening to what he just said. So he's going to build these duplexes or triplexes or whatever they may be, but this kind of zoning gives him the right to do a lot of things or someone else in the future. This is a quiet neighborhood. It'll ruin the character of our little quiet neighborhood. And we've been back there for 90 years or more. You know, I've lost my mom, my dad. My mom was 102 years old when she died in January. So if you allow this to happen, it's going to change our community dramatically. I don't believe it's about affordable housing. There's enough property for sale right across the street from this neighborhood on Highway 61. He could have bought any of that and built what he wanted on it. But what he's going to do is come in, and where he's going to exit on that 90-degree turn, everybody saw that on the map, he's going to exit right there on a 90-degree turn. A man built a house back there about 3 years ago, and he put up a wooden fence, sir, on that turn. Now you can't see when you come out. You're wondering about who's coming around the curve. Now he's going to exit another 24 cars into that 90-degree turn. You know, it's just too much for the neighborhood. It's too much density, and it'll just disturb the character and ruin the character of our little quiet neighborhood. So we're not against him building 5 or 6 single-family residential developments on that property. We understand that. He brought it, you know. But why come in and change the whole character of our neighborhood so that he might, instead of make $500,000, make $1 million? You know, so, I mean, I understand business is business, but we got a life back there, and that's why there's so many people out here this afternoon trying to tell you guys that we disapprove of this zoning change, and we wish and we hope that you guys will hear us all out. And we're not against progress, Mr. Marchant. I'm talking to you too. We're not against progress, but this is a bit too much on us now. This is a small neighborhood. Now you're going to put 24 more cars and parking in there, and some families might have 2 or 3 cars to put in there. And they're coming out, entering and exiting on a 90-degree turn that's been put in the neighborhood. So we're against it. We hope that you guys will consider what we've asked. Keep the property single-family residential, and the neighborhood doesn't have a problem with that, but the neighborhood certainly has a problem with what he's proposing here. It's nothing against him.
If you'll remain just for a minute, to see if anybody has a question for you. Anybody in the board members have a question? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Can I see those hands again? All right, you ma'am, in front, right, come on up. And please, if you would, just state your name and your address before you begin speaking.
Hi, my name is Shariah Perkins. I live at 1973 Parsonage Road, Charleston, 29414. So I'm here because I'm against the change because last year we came in front of the county council because they wanted to change the zone to build townhouses, duplexes, triplexes, whatever. So it was disapproved. So we knew, don't put your guards down, they're coming back. Even though they haven't done anything with the property, not even keep it clean. So, and like Mr. Bennett explained, when you turn on Wallace Lane, where he's going to put another road for those cars to come out, how is that going to affect the traffic getting on 61, which is already congested anyway? Kids are at the bus stop. Salvation Army does a Boys and Girls Club. That's more traffic. They have baseball field, more traffic. And the pictures that he showed, 7 o'clock, it is pretty clear because I saw the time on the pictures that he presented. So why not take the pictures at 7:30 a.m. when the traffic is backed up? Why not 4 o'clock when the traffic is backed up? And so I'm totally against it. Thank you.
Okay, if you'll wait just a minute, does anyone on the board have a question for Ms. Perkins? Thank you, Ms. Perkins. All right. You can come on up. Yes, ma'am. If you would, again, just state your name and your address.
Bonnie Garcia, I live at 1842 Wallace Lane.
Okay. All right.
As Jerome said, we don't have a problem with somebody developing property that they own. Our problem is in density. And what he's asking for, actually, he did say that he had an updated conceptual drawing, but he put his application in on 6/1/22 showing this one, which is the one you've got, which is an average of 9.6 homes per acre, residences, 12 in 1.25 acres. This is a picture, just to further show you. This is his property over here in red. This is 12 residences. This is 12 residences that we have now. We only have 22 homes in the neighborhood. It's two dead-end streets. And, you know, the density's what it should be. We do have a quiet, peaceful neighborhood. We've all gone in there, and I don't know how or why he didn't put an updated plan if he doesn't plan to use the density he asked for on his application. You know, he had the opportunity to do that. You know, I don't understand why you would buy that property and then come in and try to destroy our neighborhood.
Okay. If you'll wait just a moment, anyone have a question for Ms. Garcia? Not, ma'am, thank you.
Ms. Garcia?
I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Ms. Garcia? Do you want that document to be made part of the record of this case?
Sure.
All right,
Downing. Thank you, ma'am.
I appreciate it.
thank you. All right, can I see those hands again over here? Anyone else like, ma'am, come on up.
Everyone, my name is Ella Bennett. I live at 1833 Wallace Lane. Richmond Street and Wallace Lane Community Organization would like the support from the Charleston County Board of Zoning members for your support to remain the single-family residential zoning. Townhouses, duplex, triplex, and fourplex will change the character and the trend of our community. Some of our residents and family members have developed, lived, and worked hard to build this quiet community. Families from Magnolia Plantation and other plantations live in that area. They worked and fought hard to develop this soft, single-family residence. So we love our community and we value our community. The area can get very busy and congested at times on both streets. Both street, Richmond and Wallace, is a dead-end street with activities from the Salvation Army, such as activities in the summertime. We have summer camps. Kids get dropped off there, picked up, baseball games at the Salvation Army. They have church services, funerals, weddings. All of this goes on at the Salvation Army community. Talk about seasonal activities. Man, during the Christmas holidays and Thanksgiving, we draw a crowd in the community. And they have to park all over because it's such a small community and the Salvation Army cannot hold everybody that comes out during the Christmas and Thanksgiving holiday. They distribute things to the homeless and to people of low income. I don't know if you ever heard about them giving away turkey and things like that. So people park all over the neighborhood. So we're not opposed to housing opportunities, but to change and rezone or build 6 dwelling units with 12 apartments, that would be like 48 or more family members living with cars in that small community of one way in and one way out. So all we are asking is that you make it compatible to the houses in the community. That's all we need. The board, we are asking for your support not to change the trend of our community. Please consider the senior citizens, because we still drive, we have to come out, and the family members, and not overcrowd our small community with only one way to enter and one way to exit. We've already have to make a right turn on Ashley River Road when we really want to make a left turn. But we can't make a left turn because of the traffic, and coming from 61 from Ashley Oaks Way, the cars, there's a curve there, and they be speeding around that bend. So I'd rather take a right turn than to take a left and crash. Okay, so we're just asking the board members, please, if you have the time, come out and check out the area and see what we're talking about. And thank you for your time.
Okay. Ms. Bennett, if you'll hold on just a minute, please.
Sure.
Anyone have a question for Ms. Bennett? Thank you, Ms. Bennett. All right. Who else out here would like to speak? Come on up, sir. Will you please give us your name and address, please?
My name is Johnny Hayward, 1825 Wallace Lane. I got one problem with Mr. Who. Abernathy was his name? The last meeting I had was, me and him had a problem, because he come up with a big lie saying that was a private road. But I know for a fact, back in 1972, when I bought that property from Mr. Wallace, he told me that that was a private road. In fact, I did call him a liar. So I don't even trust him from Jumps Creek, because I built my own home. Everybody who got a home back there, they developed their own home, and that's sentimental. And you build something from the heart, you don't want nobody to touch you. My property is not for sale. I got a big oak tree in the backyard, and ain't nobody cutting them down, not unless they cut me down. And that's the God truth. I ain't got nothing against him building what he want to build, but don't come to my property. That's all I got to say, but I know he's a liar.
Mr. Hayward, let me just check to see if anybody has a question for you. Anybody have a question for Mr. Hayward? Thank you, Mr. Hayward.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else like to speak? Now, come on up, sir. Oh, man. I know right where it is.
Yes, my name is Michael Brown, address 1817 Wallace Lane and 2322 Eagle Drive, North Charleston. I would just like to say that as a community, our decision remains the same, that we would like to remain in the same zoning as we have been for years. I'd also like to say that we have members in the community that could not make it here due to health issues associated with large gatherings. We also have a lot of people that work, and the timing, the early timing prevents them from coming to the meeting. I'd also like to say that our community was here for, like he said, 90 years plus. I'm 65, and it was well established throughout my years. We lost over 25 members of our community due to the Mark Clark coming through and taking some of our property. We feel as though we've done our share as far as helping with the community and reaching certain goals. I would request that the county purchase that piece of property at a fair market value and create a playground for our community. Because we give, we would like to have something in return. So we ask that you pay him fair market value for his property and let us have a playground for our children and our community. And we are giving people the Wallaces, that's the Wallace Richmond community. I'm sure when you look back at the history, the Wallace had a lot to do with the property for the Wallace School area and the intersection up above. So we've given a lot, and we are loving and kind people. If he bought the property as residential, then it should stay that way. He build within the limits that are there and not try to change everything around him. Well, he won't be there, but we will. So, we don't want that change.
Hold on one second. Anyone have a question for Mr. Brown? Go ahead, Mr. Marchant.
Good evening, Mr. Brown. Thanks for being here, and thanks for all the members of your community. I thought I'd wait to the last opposing to ask this question, because one of the things that I think we as a board have to think about is the need for affordable housing in our community, and also the ability to find density that is in concert with the surrounding developments without being too invasive to single-family detached, which is what your neighborhood is. And so my question for you is, help me a little bit with what community means to in your eyes, because around Wallace and Richmond Road, we also have West Chase and Palomino Court and William Kennedy Drive, all of which are populated with multifamily, multi-tenant housing. And when I think about that part of Highway 61, there's a great mix of uses up and down 61, with the proposed development here to be closer to single family than it is to, say, an apartment complex, a typical apartment complex. And so part of me feels good about that we're finding ways to find affordability closer to town in communities where people live and work, that's also not out of concert with single family detached. So when you talk about community, and when your neighbors talk about community, and I don't mean to pick on you, but you were the last one. So tell me about community, because when I look at community, I might look at a street, I might look at a neighborhood, I might look at a district, and I'm trying to look at this as a district. So some thoughts around that, perhaps?
Well, it's according to how close you want to knit this thing. You want to talk about community as Charleston, or you want to talk about community as residential, in which I'm living in now, that you're talking, that basically that's
I think
about
as
to
you
change.
define it, like how would you define it, or maybe your neighbors define it?
Well, I look at it an overall view of everything. The Charleston area, how it's been, how the people has progressed, the work that we all do to help each other, the work that we do to improve our community. Now, I don't want to talk about myself, because I've done a lot for the Charleston community. Now, I'll talk about the men and ladies that work in our community, in the Richmond Wallace community, to build their homes, to make their families, and survive. Now, after slavery, these guys had nothing. They had absolutely nothing to work with. Most of the homes back there where we are were built by the owners. And I saw some of them built. And I saw my dad build his own home with the help of family members and others. I was there when they decided to have the Mark clock come through. My parents had a 5-acre lake in the backyard. Guy came from SCDOT. I was outside. He drove the stake to my front door, looked at me, and smiled, showed me all his teeth. Took my parents' house for low or nothing. Nothing. And of course, they did get an attorney, but the process was that other people made the decision, so it was worthless. And you talk about community. Me, I have an open heart. I worked for the SCDOT. I worked for them. I trusted them. You had the new Ravenel Bridge, the Limehouse Bridge, the new Stono River Bridge. You had bridges in Beaufort. They had 27 years worth of work done in 7 years. I handled it all by myself on a gentleman's agreement, which ended up being no good on my part. I know what community is. I gave Charleston my heart. I gave them my best work. When they drive across the Ravenel Bridge, that's part of my work. When you go in my community, the men built their own homes. The ladies were with them 100%. That's community. Now, when someone comes in and want to change everything for a few dollars, that's not something that we agree with. He's going to make money on the deal and leave it. He's not going to live there. We're going to be there. They took my parents' property. Mr. Wallace was kind enough to find a way to sell my parents a piece of property. They built their home there. Now, right next to it, he's planning on just ruining it. Not only for them, but for us. I have nothing against him personally, but if he bought that property and the zoning that's there, that's what he should use it for. If he could build 3 houses on it, that's fine. He could build 5 houses, that's fine. But otherwise, just to make a profit, I don't think that's right. I really don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair to us as a community. I would like for us to have a playground. Most nice neighborhoods have a playground for their children and their families. And I don't think it would be asking too much for you guys to do that, because it can be done.
Mr. Graydon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
That's what community means to me.
Thank you. Just to be clear, I mean, we can't do playgrounds here, and we can't change land ownership. I mean, we're here to hear the case in point, but I appreciate it. I just want to share with you what I look at, what I'm wrestling with is an opportunity for housing for others, and in the context of a community that has a lot of mixed uses. And I think you said it well when you said you think as Charleston as a whole, as a community, and how this fits within the context of that is something that I'm thinking about as we ponder this case. So I appreciate your comments.
Right. And to say that affordable housing is something that's used as a way to get things done, however, it's not always done as it is when they have a clause in there where they can pay a fine if they don't accommodate the people. And, you know, affordable housing, if you can't look at all of the rules and regulations, you can't make a good decision. So you have to look at the rules and regulations, which we don't have. And I'm sure there are some new rules that you guys are looking at that, you know, the public is not into yet. But if we get a hold of those rules and look at it, we can make an informed decision.
Mr. Brown, I'll follow up real quick. You make a very important point that I wasn't aware of until you brought it up, that the Mark Clark Expressway encroached on your neighborhood once already. Would you be kind to tell me maybe how many folks or how many homes were lost in that eminent domain taking?
Approximately 6 homes and approximately 25 family members.
Did you said your family was able to build on a new piece of property within the community? Were some of those other folks not so fortunate?
Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Boyan?
Okay.
Come on up.
Brown was not here. He asked that I let everybody know that he would like to be here, but his health wouldn't let him.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. All right, ma'am, you can come on up.
So as a point of clarification, we are not changing the zoning on this property. The zoning is R4 low density, and that's how it will remain. When they came for rezoning in February, just to go back to that, we did not have the zoning ordinance stuff in place that addresses affordable housing. That came about in October of 2021. And so the rezoning that they applied for previously was to go from R4 to M12, which would have increased the density. But it's still R4 low residential density. And also some additional information kind of to add to that, Mr. Marchant, addressing your community question. The city of Charleston does show, it recognizes the area called Trotty Woods as a settlement community. They just haven't had the designation from Charleston County.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Ma'am, if you'll state your name.
I want to make a comment because I was getting up here to talk about R4 and
Ma'am,
low
ma'am,
density.
I need you to state your name and give us your address first, and then you can go.
My name is Ella Bennett, and I live at 1833 Wallace Lane.
Okay.
I want to make a comment about the low density and the R4. Low density housing comes with fewer people. That's what the low density housing is, with fewer people, not packed with, 48 plus people, because we already have a lower impact in that area, which is R4. So I just wanted to make that clear that, we are a small community, and from the city or the county perspective, they call us low density. So if we're low density, we should remain low density with fewer amount of people. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody have a question? Thank you, ma'am. All right, any new people that have not spoken? All right, ma'am, come on up.
Mr. Chairman, if we could hear something new, that'd be great.
Well, I think this is the last one.
Good evening. My name is Rosalie Brown. I reside at 1885 Richmond Street, and that's in West Ashley, Trotty Woods community. I grew up in the community. We have a very close-knit community. I used to walk to school from Richmond Street to Wallace Middle School. We weren't offered public transportation because we were in close proximity to the school. So if you look at where we live now and where that school is now, for a child my age at that time, I thought it was very dangerous, but we did what we had to do. The reason why we're, personally, I'll say me, against this proposal is, by far, I haven't had anyone knock on my door and discuss it with me. Luckily, I'm very internet savvy, which you've heard that we have an older community, a senior community of folks. And most people don't get on the internet and explore Charleston County like I do. Explore the agenda to see what's on the agenda next. If it weren't for myself, a few neighbors, we would have never known. Not everyone gets the newspapers. It's $2 a day. I'm fortunate because my mother did, because she was an avid reader. And unless you hear from each member in the community what's going on with Charleston County Council, we don't know. You never come, I won't say you, and knock on the door and say, hey, I'm your elected official from Charleston County. What can we do for your community? You all are aware that we are one of the very few African-American communities, settlement communities left. And that's very dear to my heart. What I haven't heard is that behind us, right at the end of Richmond Street, as part of that 526 expansion, that's right on our property. If an 18-wheeler came and ran off that road, he would run into our house. That's how close we are. So on the front end, not only are you trying to create affordable housing, I don't know who it's affordable for, but that's to be determined. Like I said, I have not seen anything that says this is the price range. We're going to explore 12 units. I haven't seen that in writing. I haven't heard anyone come and speak to me. I haven't heard anyone in my community say that, hey, this developer came and wanted to discuss it. We're open, We're not looking at color. We're looking at people, And the community is going to stick together. I had to put in a few words about building a wall because we hear all the noise. We hear all of the noise from 526, And I said, what is it going to take for me to get someone to put a wall up? Is it going to take putting underwear on the lines? That's a distraction. Maybe that'll get it, But what does it take for us to get your attention, for you to let us know, for the people who don't read the newspaper or aren't on the internet? How would we know?
All right, Ms. Brown, let's see if we have any questions. Anyone have a question for Ms. Brown? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, one more. All right. And I would ask, do you have anything different to bring to this board that hasn't already been said?
Just a little bit.
Yes, ma'am. Okay,
My
please,
name
go ahead.
is Dr. Roxanne Brown Johnson, 1889 Richmond Street, Charleston. My parents own 1889 Richmond Street. Just like Michael Brown, my parents lost a little bit of their land too. They took the edge off of that. So our home is the one that you see when you go past on 526 with the backyard. Sometimes you may see my kids playing outside because we are a community. My kids play outside. Her grandkids walk to school. This is a small community. We've had new people come in our community, and we're very welcoming, I feel like. We want to remain a small community. It's not that we don't want progress for West Ashley. That's not it at all. We want safety. We want safety for our children. We understand the impact of having affordable homes. We're not against affordable homes. If something must be built on that property, then we would like to see a single-family home if we couldn't have a community park or something community-wide that could go right there in that spot, so we wouldn't keep running up against the same issue year after year. They're right. Everybody's right. We have given our hearts and soul to this community. A lot of us are related. I don't know if y'all know that. And even those of us that are not related by blood, we've been together. Our families, our grandparents have been together in that same community for all these years. From the time they left those plantations till they moved there, my grandmother brought the property that some of us live on. That's how we wound up back there. Before that, if you know anything about 61 and you know where Corbett's is, my grandmother's house sat behind there. That's the original, and my daddy is over 80 years old, and this is where he's from. He went to a little wooden school right there, west of Ashley. That's why this means so much to us. That's why every time somebody comes forward to try and change our community, we are going to show up in numbers. You see that girl right there in that blue shirt? That's my daughter. I'm teaching her to come, and we're going to fight to try and make our community remain a community. They go to my parents' house almost every day. They went to school from my parents' house. My younger kids go to school from there. Most of these people, their grandchildren, will go to school from their house because they're our caregivers for our kids. And as they age, we will be their caregivers. And so the community will continue on. That's what community means to us.
Ma'am, hold me. I have a question for you. Any questions from the board? Thank you, Ms. Dr. Brown. All right. Anyone else? Okay. At this time, we'll ask the applicant to come up, and you've got 2 minutes to speak in rebuttal. And if you'll, again, please state your name and address.
John Distefano, 1910 Capri Drive. A couple of points. To Mr. Hayward's point.
Mr. Stefano,
Pardon me, I'm sorry. To
please
Mr.
address the
Hayward's
board.
point, we actually, there were 3 parcels purchased at the closing, which was in December of 2021. It does include Wallace Lane. That is actually a private right-of-way that the state maintains, and the state didn't even know that it was not in their inventory. We are working with the state to get rid of that road because we don't want to own a road. Believe me, that is the last thing you want to own. It is, the state does own the road. We own, the state maintains the road. We own the property currently. That will change very quickly. There's also a smaller parcel deeper into Wallace Lane.
Sir, excuse me.
Sir,
Please. I'm going to need you to sit down, sir.
Thank you. Continue, sir.
And there's one other parcel that's further down Wallace that was also part of this grouping of properties that were all handled. None of which, again, the street's Wallace Lane's going to be transferred to the state where it needs to be. The other property that's further down Wallace Lane, we were more than likely would donate that to the neighborhood at some point in time. It's a 20 by 30 parcel. The taking of property, we're not taking anybody's property. To the neighbor's point, we a few years ago we did reach out to Mr. Bennett specifically with limited success. We tried to explain to him what we wanted to do, how we wanted to do it. At the time when we applied for the rezoning, that was our only option last year. We did not know that ZLDR was going to be amended. So had we known that, we wouldn't have even tried. The one thing that does bother me the most is I'm not going to be around. I live in West Ashley. My business is a mile away. I represented the Public Service District for over 11 years in West Ashley. I'm not going anywhere. We're trying to be as sensitive as we can, but we're also trying to fulfill the goal that the county so far has been unable to do. The city, with limited success, has been able to do. A good example is the Maryville, Russell. The city has done a number of developments in Maryville. Excuse me. The city hired me to help them with their affordable program, which I did for almost 2 years. This was one of the very first parcels that was presented to the city way back. Other properties, there's 3.5 acres right adjacent. It runs parallel to Wallace Lane. That could be purchased, and you could do 25 homes there. We don't want to do that. We bought this property knowing it's zoned R4, knowing that the publicly, the ZLDR, which is available to anybody that has an internet connection, knowing what the rules and the regulations were with the ZDR, we are committed to doing some workforce affordable housing. If we can't do it, we won't do it. We'll build 4 single-family homes and try to sell them for $500,000 or $400,000, whatever the market will bring now, and going down the road. But I mean, this has become somewhat of a quest, to be honest.
All right, Mr. Distefano,
Thank you, sir.
let me see if we have a question for you.
Mr. Distefano, I think two criteria I'm having a little bit of challenge with are the I'm sorry, give me a second here. Criteria 2 is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity and will not adversely affect the general welfare character of the community. You've heard what potential neighbors have had to say. I still believe community includes that and maybe some other surrounding developments that attract mixed use and multiple densities. So I feel good about that. I think I'm still struggling with it, but the other two really have to do with where you are in the site plan development, and especially number 5 and 6, which I think will become much clearer once you have a more defined site plan. And I think the question maybe for me and the board, and I might get a little counsel from staff, is how far should site plans be developed to determine compatibility with these criteria? Because going from a duplex to a triplex to a mix of single family and duplex might land differently with your neighbors, which might give you a lot of easier way to develop the land. And I want this to happen because I think we need some more affordable housing in West Ashley. We need it all over the place. And your comment about what the city is trying to do and what the county is trying to do lands well with me. So anyway, I guess my question is, could you talk a little bit about not adversely affecting general welfare or character of the community, and also specifically traffic and site use as it relates to applicable rules and regulations, because you're not fully developed and you haven't done a traffic study and things like that. So I guess those are my two questions.
Well, the option to exit out directly on the 61 is I don't based on what the engineers have told us, because of the proximity to Tobias Gas, is just not doable. Because then you've got Richmond, you would have our exit, and then you've got Tobias Gas, and then the turn lane for Tobias Gas would start literally where the ingress egress to the development would be. Again, these are going to be 2 and 3 bedroom single family homes. If there's a duplex, they're still each side, they're going to be identical. They'll just be either they're going to be single family or a duplex. The chances of having 4 drivers and 4, there won't be room for, you can't park 4 cars. I mean, those chances are slim. Is it going to increase traffic? Will there be more cars on Wallace and Richmond? Sure. Is everybody going to leave at the same time? No. We have not done a formal traffic study because we don't know what we can do. That's kind of the quandary we're in. I mean, we can look at it all single family, or we can look at it all duplex. We've looked at it all duplex and it won't work. If we can mix 1 or 2 duplex units into the project, it will work, and it will work on the basis of affordability. And before we can, get further into it, we want to make sure that is an option we have to use, an option we can use if needed. So that's where we are. The intent is not to change the fabric of the neighborhood. I don't know whether the people moving in will be, young professionals, older professionals, white, black, Hispanic, who knows? We don't know. We can't dictate who will move into these homes. I think it would be incumbent upon the existing community to welcome them in, regardless of who they are, knowing that these homes are going to be targeted towards our first-time homeowners, our firefighters, our police officers, our school teachers. I mean, change is a scary thing. And we're not taking property. We're simply trying to maximize the use of this particular parcel for the affordability, the workforce, as it's written in the ZLDR.
Go ahead, Mr. Jordan.
I believe you mentioned a few minutes ago that you might give a piece of property to the neighborhood.
We will. It's if you go down Wallace Lane, it's a 20, maybe 20 by 30, 30 by 40. It's a little tiny piece that, where it came from, we don't really know, but it was part of this assemblage, the main property, the Wallace Lane property.
You will give it to the community?
We'd be happy to.
Is it big enough for a playground?
It may be a very small playground.
Well, would you be willing to do something to help them get that playground?
We would certainly donate the property, not without a doubt.
Thank you.
No, sir, you've already spoken. Mr. Distefano, I've got to say that in hearing all that we've heard tonight, my concern is criteria too. And this is one of those situations where it's the devil and the witch. We need affordable housing. We want affordable housing in a place where it works. I'm excited about all that you're trying to do. The conflict I have is this is a community that's been identified as being a settlement community. That's the first big flag for me. The next thing is I'm moved that this community has already suffered condemnation of property, the removal of 6 homes and 25 folks out of it, some of which didn't come back. And it's not that you're intending to cause any harm. This is more of a character issue for me of what the character of that community is right now. And your motivations are all well intended, but I'm taking that off the table and looking at the impact on the neighborhood. And, it's either 4 units or potentially 12 units or something in between. There will be more people and more traffic, and the greater density is not the same as single-family residential. And I hear the concerns of these folks, and and I applaud everything you're trying to do. But for me, I'm just not there. I think criteria 2 is not satisfied, not on any part that you've done. It's just that we need it, but this might be a case where there are other details and other issues with this community and this property that might not make this an ideal situation. But I'll hear from you on that.
No, it's understood. Is it doable without the duplexes? Maybe. Period. Under workforce affordable, we're probably looking at eight single family homes. That's not going to. I mean, the minimum lot size is I believe 4,000 square feet. Okay. We laid it out 100 different ways.
Sure. Anyone else on the board have a question? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we've closed this case for public comment, and I would like to ask for a motion from the board whether to approve or disapprove this application. No. Well, great, Mr. Marchant.
Well, I just have a question maybe for council and staff. I mean, I continue to struggle with the further development of the site plan because I think there's a compromise here somewhere for the residents and for Mr. Distefano. I mean, all single family and 2 duplexes sounds pretty good to me. And yet there's others that say no, it's only single family. I've seen a lot of single family developments that I'd rather be duplexes because they were so bad single family developments. So, part of me wants to see further development with the intention of finding resolutions for all parties because that's what we should be doing in our communities. So I'm struggling with the motion because of that, and wondering if there's another avenue.
All right. Well, if no one's in the mood to make a motion, I guess I will make a motion. And my motion in the matter of BZA case 06-22-00590, I move that the application be denied as it does not meet criteria 2, in my opinion, that it is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity and will not adversely affect the general welfare and character of the immediate community. I think it could be consistent with uses, but I do think it also will adversely affect the welfare and character. That's my motion based on the testimony we've heard from the residents. And again, I'm making note that it is a settlement community and that this community has already been lost families and property and homes once already. I am a fan of what Mr. Distefano was trying to do, and we need affordable housing, but I'm moved in this case, on this instance, this might not be the right fit. So that is my motion. I don't know if I can get a second, but I've got a second. All right. All right. Discussion. Mr. Marchant, I hear you loud and clear.
I appreciate the motion. I struggle with what community means. I think those that have come out tonight in opposition, their points are very well valid and appreciated. And there is a history here that's different than most places in West Ashley and really in Charleston. So I'm a compromise guy, so I was looking for a solution for all, but I wish we were farther down the communication. I mean, I think the lesson tonight is communicate early with the neighborhood and try to build consensus, but that hasn't happened. So I appreciate the motion. I'll leave it at that.
I concur with all your thoughts. Any further discussion from anyone? All right, well, at this time, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So we have 3, and that is a majority, so that carries because this is a special exception. Mr. Distefano, I'm sorry it didn't pass.
You should also ask who's in favor.
I'm sorry, excuse me. All those against the motion, please raise your hand and say nay. So we got 2. All right, so there's a 3-2, and the motion carries. All right, Mr. Stephan, you can reach out to staff and see if there's something that can go forward another way. But sorry it didn't pass. So, Ms. Working, will you call the
It's only 5 members here.
next case, please? And I may add,
I think, question, sir?
I'm sorry, hold on. Mr. Stefano, you'll receive it in writing in 10 days, so, yes, sir. But no, well, we can't. All right.
Yeah, I'm just,
Okay.
I'm not trying to figure
If you have a question of staff, you can speak to,
the motion was denied, sir.
We appreciate that.
all right.
He got what he wanted.
I tried to. That was tough. But I actually know quite a few of those people.
All right, Mr. Downing, you can present our next case.
I'll wait for the
Okay.
majority of the
Sure.
folks to leave because that was fun.
They're not all getting on the same elevator.
And this is case ending in 590. So you can get that pulled up. No, I lied. 591. Sorry about that.
Jenny?
00591.
So BZA case 0622000591. The applicant and property owner, Ms. Tanya Bogg, is requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density R4 zoning district at 2061 Medway Road, TMS number 343-0300095 on James Island in Charleston County. The subject property and all surrounding properties are located in the low-density R4 zoning district. The property contains a single-family residence with 3 bedrooms that was constructed in 1941 per Charleston County records. There is currently an accessory dwelling unit being constructed on the parcel for personal use only. The request is to rent out all 3 bedrooms in the single-family residence for up to 144 days per calendar year. Please be advised that the BZA may approve the request, but may modify such things as the number of rental nights used in this zoning district. That is the definition of short-term rental, the use table in the zoning district. And some more definitions of short-term rental, the flow chart for permitting processes. That is a picture of the subject property. And again, all of the surrounding properties are in the R4 zoning district. That is an aerial view of the subject property and a zoomed out aerial view of the subject property. Picture of the sign that was placed in the yard on Medway Road. That is the single-family residence and the parking. That is a picture of the accessory dwelling unit. Again, that is being used, proposed for personal use only. Staff did conduct a site visit on July the 14th. That is Medway Road. Staff believes that all three criteria may have been met. The Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 0622000591, the special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density residential zoning district at 2061 Medway Road, TMS number 34303000095 on James Island in Charleston County, based on the BZA's fact-finding, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. The board may modify any of staff's conditions below, including but not limited to the number of short-term rental nights proposed in any calendar year. In the event that the board decides to approve this application, the board should consider the five following recommendations by staff. Prior to the zoning permit's approval, the applicant shall complete the short-term rental limited site plan review process. The use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. The property shall not be used for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year. The property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that tenants comply with the Charleston County noise ordinance. And number 5 is special to this zoning, parcel. If the property owner would like to utilize the accessory dwelling unit for short-term rental use and further in the future, they must file for a limited site plan review application and receive a special exception from the Board of Zoning Appeals for the use of the accessory dwelling unit as a short-term rental. That is the site plan that was submitted, and that is a copy of the plat. And that is another copy of the plat. Any questions of staff? Mm-hmm. Yes, sir, Mr. Jordan.
Why do you use the word requirements may have been met?
So in this application, they were asked to respond to the criteria, and staff believes that it may have been met according to the criteria, but that is for the board to decide.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, in addition, since we get some public comments in advance of the meeting. However, it is a public hearing, so we don't know how the community feels necessarily about a case until this moment when we call up. So.
And also, just to clarify, and you weren't on the board, but a few years ago, all the information that's presented by staff or the applicant is for the board to vet themselves. So.
Any other questions of the board? Thank you, Mr. Downey.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here tonight? Would you please come forward and give us your name and your address, please?
My name is Tanya Boggs, and I reside at 2061 Medway Road.
Ms. Boggs, please tell this board why we should approve your request.
Well, if I'm being completely honest, I'm in the middle of a divorce, and I want to keep my home. And being able to rent it sometimes when I'm traveling for business or for vacation would help me be able to continue to pay my mortgage and my bills and offset some of those costs that I'm now carrying by myself. And so I think that, we have a neighborhood where there are short-term rentals in my neighborhood. The woman next door, plot 096 that was presented back there. She doesn't even live in our neighborhood. She lives in New York, and she rents her house full time because she is an investor that bought that home in order to rent it, and she gets to rent it as many days as she wants. I actually am an upstanding member of my community. I actually help her drag her garbage I've agreed to take her garbage and recycling out every week. And we're a community and a street of people who help each other. And I do know that someone wrote an opposition letter, and I would like the opportunity to address that if that's appropriate. But it is definitely still my home. It's my only home. I plan to live there. I've lived there for 10 years. I plan on owning that home until I die and passing it on to my daughter. So I have no reason to be trying to change the fabric of my community. I want to, we have a beautiful neighborhood. It's great. Everybody, you know, tries their best to get along and help each other out. And so I don't think this is going to impede that because it's still an owner-occupied residence.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have a question for Ms. Boggs? Mr. Marchant?
I would just ask you to tell us why you opposed the opposition letter. I'd love to hear it.
So she made a lot of assumptions in her letter, I felt like. Her letter states that she thinks it would be destructive because she doesn't believe that it's still going to remain an owner-occupied space. She talks about the annex, the ADU I'm building. That is a personal space for me to conduct business because I usually work out of my home, but during COVID, I couldn't have meetings there because my family wouldn't let people come in our house. And to just have an extra space, I am building it as an additional dwelling unit so I can stay there while I'm renting it so that I can maintain. She talks about the owner states she will not allow partying, yet she also states that she will only be there at times she is not traveling. But there'll be some times I'm not traveling and I'll have a rental and I can stay back there and work back there and monitor what's happening on my property. I have no interest. Most people who I've started renting it with the regular whatever 72 days I have, it's mostly friends. It's mostly families who are getting together that come from different states, and people aren't having parties. That my neighbors are not complaining to me. Most people are not in opposition of this. And then she says, my suspicion is she intends to rent out rooms in the main house and the small annex in the back on something like Airbnb. And I'm not planning on renting my small annex. Maybe in the future when I retire, if I want to rent that out, I will go through the application process, but that would be a long-term rental that would help me offset my mortgage as I age. But this is a home I plan to live in forever. So I just feel like she jumped to a lot of conclusions that are just inaccurate. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Any other questions?
Just one additional.
Yeah.
It's pretty standard with these things, but do you intend to use Airbnb or VRBO or one of those agencies?
Right now I am using Airbnb. I was thinking about using a local person, Charleston's Best Rentals, to help me manage it. But right now I'm just trying to get through the process of, I've got so much going on and I don't want to give him 20% of what I'm bringing in while I'm building this space that also requires some investment on my part. So right now it's Airbnb. It could possibly be a local agency that manages it.
Thank you.
And then they would be in charge of sort of making sure people are following the rules and taking care of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, I will now ask if there's anyone here tonight to speak in favor of this application. Anyone here to speak in favor? All right, seeing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Speak in opposition. We have none. All right, at this time, we will close this matter for the public, and I'd like to have a motion. Mr. Marchant.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case BZA-06-22-00591 as that I believe it meets all three criteria. Criteria one is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity. As we heard from the applicant, there are other rentals in the neighborhood. And because she is using an agency to rent her space, it should be congruent with other rentals in that neighborhood. Criteria two, adequate provisions made or exist for such items as setbacks, buffering, including fences and or landscaping to protect adjacent properties. The site plan certainly accommodates the parking and has enough buffer to be in concert with this criteria. Criteria three, complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards of this ordinance, including but not limited to any use conditions, zoning district standards, and applicable STRP site plan review requirements of this ordinance. In addition to meeting those criteria, I recommend the following conditions recommended by staff, or recommend approving the following conditions recommended by staff. Prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the STRP limited site plan review process. Number 2, the use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. Number 3, the property shall not be used as a short-term rental for more than 144 days in the aggregate during any calendar year. Number 4, the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that tenants comply with the Charleston County Noise Ordinance. Number 5, the property owner would like to utilize the accessory dwelling unit for short-term rental use in the future. They must, if the property owner would like to use the ADU for short-term rental in the future, they must file a limited site plan review application and receive a special exception from the Board of Zoning Appeals for the use of accessory dwelling unit as a short-term rental. Herein is my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Marchant. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Whittle. At this time, we have discussion. Would anybody care to discuss this matter? Hearing none. At this time, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye. Aye. The vote is unanimous. The motion carries. Congratulations, Ms. Boggs. Your application was approved by the board. You'll hear from planning staff in about 10 days. Thank you very much. All right. Does anyone need a break on the board, or is everybody okay? All good? Okay. Mr. Dan, if you'll continue.
All right, so BZA case 06-22-00592. The applicant and property owner, Mr. John Popelka of JSP Parcels LLC, is requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density R4 zoning district at 554 Fleming Road, TMS number 34003000021. That is the definition of short-term rental. And that is some more definitions of short-term rental and the applicable zoning districts with the flow chart for permitting. So the subject property, the properties to the north and west are located in the low-density residential R4 zoning district. The properties to the northeast, east, south, and southeast are located in the city of Charleston's jurisdiction. The property contains a single-family residence that was constructed in 2021 for Charleston County records. The request is to rent out 4 bedrooms for up to 144 days a year. Please note that the BZA can limit such things as the number of short-term rental days during a calendar year. That is the subject property, and that is a zoomed-out area view of the subject property. That's a picture of the sign that was posted in the yard when staff conducted a site visit on July the 14th. That is the subject property and the parking for the subject property. That is Fleming Road. So again, staff believes that all 3 of the criteria may have been met for this application. The Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 06-22-00592, a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density residential R4 zoning district at 554 Fleming Road, TMS number 34003000021 on James Island in Charleston County, based on the BZA's fact-finding, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. The board may modify any staff recommendation conditions below, including but not limited to the restriction of the short-term rental days to be rented. In the event that the board decides to approve this application, the board should consider the recommendations by staff. Number 1, prior to the zoning permit's approval, the applicant shall complete the limited site plan review process. The use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. The property shall not be used for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year, and the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that the tenants comply with the Charleston County Noise Ordinance. That is the picture of the site plan. That was the plat. Any questions of staff?
Any questions for Mr. Downey? All right. Thank you, Mr. Downey.
Thank you.
All right. Is the applicant here? Please come forward. And if you'd please state your name and address, sir.
My name is John Popelka. Address is 164 4th Avenue, Mount Pleasant, 29464. Basically, I'd just like to say that I agree with staff and feel I meet the criteria which are in the application. I'm happy to discuss any particulars. I'm renting no more than 4 bedrooms, no more than 10 guests at one time, no more than 144 days per year. Part of what I plan to do is to have strict house rules. That includes, no parties and hours of outdoor activity. I plan to have noise monitoring devices in place. I will be the manager. My son and I will be the managers. We're not going to hire somebody, so we'll be there to ensure compliance with the county noise ordinance. And any concerned neighbors we'll be happy to give our cell phone numbers to. In short, I think we meet the same criteria as the last 15 or so that have been approved over the last 12 months, including the one immediately prior and the 3 last month. I've looked at all the applications. Would even say the site lends it more so. I purchased a mobile home, got rid of the mobile home, subdivided the property, and built 2 homes. So my one neighbor is a customer of mine. Behind me, there's some existing houses. There's 2 fences between my property and the properties behind me. Not one, but 2 fences and a buffer between the fences. I too would like to, as the previous applicant, there was a letter against me that I'd like to address, and didn't know if I should do that at this time or wait to see if there's any more comments.
You can continue. You got a little bit more time. Go ahead.
A neighbor wrote a letter, just specifically from that letter. They made the conclusion that the property was already being rented as a short-term rental under oath. I stated it's never been rented, never been advertised for rental on any short-term rental platform, MLS, never been rented. So there's comments about a fire pit being 50 feet away, which there is. It's a tripod with a bowl and 3 chairs. The 50 lots behind me, all of the lots are 40 feet wide. I'd bet that 25% of those have fire pits in their backyards. So by definition, those would be closer. So I'm not even sure what that issue would be. As far as the noise and the late night parties, I have Zoom cameras all over the property. My son, who in my application will be spending some time at the place, he has been staying there with guests. I look at it every day. I have not seen any parties. The only thing I can fathom was there was a garage in the very back of the property that was existing that I did not demolish, that came with the property. I've in the process of redoing that. It has electricity. It does not have any plumbing, water or sewer. It's merely we have a air hockey table. We're going to put a TV in there and a foosball machine. So at night he probably was back there working at night and had music going. Didn't think about it, but I can assure that it will not be an issue going forward. As far as we have string lights. We do have string lights. I think a lot of people have string lights nowadays. I'm happy to put some sort of timer on those. The shed that I re-sided the whole, it's a detached garage is what it is, a 2-car garage. And I redid the whole thing. There was a permanent security light that I removed that was about 10,000 lumens and it stayed on from dusk to dawn. So if anything, I think maybe they're happy I'll remove that. In place I have string lights, but I could put a timer on those. They mentioned I created an outdoor space for parties. I disagree with that. There's a detached garage that existed that I've redone. That's an indoor space. Other than that, if you look at the site plan, there's a wonderful opportunity for outdoor spaces that I've not done anything with. I got a big vacant lawn back there that I could have done a lot of other opportunities. They stated they moved to Fleming Park to get away from short-term rentals. There's short-term rentals all along Fleming Road, Woodland Shores, Riverland. I guess the challenge here as we back up to a PD in the city of Charleston. All of Fleming Road is in Charleston County. So we don't have restrictive covenants or an HOA that prohibits it. They do. So I don't know how to address that, but
Mr. Pelican, let me stop you. Sure. Would anyone like to ask a question? Okay. You've run out of time.
Okay.
But, all right. No questions. Have a seat for me, please. At this time, I'll ask, is there anyone here to speak in support of this application? Anyone here to speak in support? Not seeing anyone. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Hearing none. This case is now closed to the public. Do we have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
Concerning BZA case 0622-00592 is applicant criteria 1. The applicant is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity and will not adversely affect the general welfare and character of the immediate community. Criteria number 2, adequate provision is made and or exists for such items as setbacks, buffering, including fences and or landscaping to protect adjacent properties from the possible adverse influence of the proposed short-term rental use, such as noise, traffic congestion, trash, parking, and similar factors. According to criteria 3, it complies with all applicable rules, regulation, laws, standards of the ordinance, including but not limited to any use, conditions, zoning district standards, and applicable short-term rental site plan review requirements of this ordinance. In addition to the board's recommendation, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the short-term rental unlimited site plan review process. The use shall be complied with requirements of Article 6.8. This property shall not be used as a short-term rental for more than 144 days in an aggregate during any calendar year. And the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that tenants comply with the Charleston County noise ordinances.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. We have a motion that's been properly made and seconded. Any discussion by anyone? Hearing none, this time we'll call it for a vote. I would ask all those in favor of Mr. Freeman's motion to so signify by raising the right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. It was unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Popelka. Your application's been approved, and you'll receive notification in 10 days from staff, and then you can reach out to them to continue the process. All right. Everybody doing good on the board? Okay. So this time, staff will present BZA case 00593.
The applicant and property owner, Philip Devine, is requesting a variance to locate a detached accessory structure swimming pool to the side of the principal structure at 656 Stoneborough Court, TMS number 343-15-00106 on James Island in Charleston County. The subject property and surrounding properties to the north and west are located in the low-density residential R4 zoning district in the Stoneborough Shores subdivision. The adjacent property to the south is located in the R4 zoning district, and the adjacent property to the east is located in the City of Charleston's jurisdiction. The subject property, lot number 10, is a total of 18,222 square feet, or 0.418 acres, and contains a single-family residence that was constructed in 2006 per Charleston County records. The applicant purchased the property in November 2018. The Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance, ZELDAR, Chapter 6, Use Regulations, Article 6.5, Accessory Uses and Structures, Section 6.58, Accessory Structures in Residential and Residential Office Zoning Districts, states, in quote, "A detached accessory structure shall be located wholly to the rear of the principal structure, provided that this limitation shall not apply to carports or garages," end quote. And this is a photograph or an aerial photograph of the subject property, zoomed in and zoomed out. We conducted our site visit on June 14th, 2022. This shows the subject property here, the front of the property, and then the side. This is the north side of the property where the proposed pool would be located. The proposed pool location and the 20-foot wide drainage easement along the eastern property boundary. And this is the western side of the property that contains trees and a 40-foot wide drainage easement. This is the adjacent property owner, 650 Stoneborough Court. And this is the zoomed out site plan and zoomed in site plan. The pool would be about approximately 9 to 10 feet from lot number 9. And the plat of the subdivision. Staff, regarding the criteria, staff stated that it may meet 1, 2, 3, and 7, that it may not meet 4 and 6, and that it meets 5. If the board chooses to approve the application, we suggest one condition, that the applicant shall install evergreen screening vegetation a minimum 15-foot height along the property line adjacent to lot number 9. The applicant shall submit a landscape plan for review and approval by staff prior to zoning permit approval for the pool, and the vegetation shall be installed prior to final approval of the pool. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Working. Okay. At this time, I'll call the applicant to come forward, please. If you would, please give us your name and your address.
Yep. My name is Philip Devine. I live at 656 Stoneborough Court, Charleston, South Carolina, 29412. I live there with my wife, Cassie, and my kids, Sylvester and Lucy. So I'll just add to what was already presented, that this is not a completely unique case, even though our property is, I guess, rather uniquely situated. There's cases BZA-02-21-00470 and case BZA-03-21-00477 of similar swimming pools being put to the side of the properties because there wasn't room behind them that were both approved. Our plan accounts for the existing natural flow of water drainage along the side and rear of the home and includes additional drainage as well as the addition of vegetation, as Ms. Working mentioned, which will aid in absorbing any excess water. The side of our home that we're proposing to build the pool on would not require the removal of any trees and would remain greater than 15 feet away from all trees on the side and behind our home as well. And the reason we chose that side of our home is because the other side has heavy tree cover, including 6 oak trees, 4 gum trees, and 2 magnolias. I think that's kind of everything I have right now.
Okay, if you'll hold on a minute. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Devine? Mr. Marchant.
Mr. Devine, do you want to address the letters of opposition just so the board can have a better sense for that argument?
Sure. Would you like me to do that now or after the opposition?
I think you have plenty of time and
sure.
Do it now.
So there's a couple elements of the opposition that I'll address that I think are relevant and some that are not. So there's one element of the opposition that there wasn't a vote to change the covenants and that there also wasn't a vote to allocate HOA funds up to a limit to file the changes, but there indeed was. And I'll read the message that comes from the meeting notes of the HOA meeting that this was held at. Discussion and approval of a pool bylaw change. The street votes yes to update the covenant regarding pool location from swimming pools must be located to the rear of the main dwelling with proper screening and safety fencing. 2, swimming pools must be located to the rear of the front corner of the house with proper screening and safety fencing, consistent with fence clause. The vote was also yes to use $400 of HOA funds to ratify the changes with a lawyer and make relevant modern updates to the HOA bylaws, such as updating the requirements to submit changes via certified mail to permitting any written changes. We also made our plan available to the neighborhood and HOA prior to the meeting, including which side of the home that the pool would be on, as well as the specifications for the pool. The exact terminology of the updated covenants were also voted on, as I mentioned, despite opposition claiming otherwise. There's also ongoing maybe not exactly relevant elements that were placed in the opposition, but I think the fact of the matter is, if we're talking about whether or not this is going to be detrimental, that there isn't really any evidence that would suggest that the pool in particular would cause substantial detriment. And we plan to continue to follow any and all guidelines by the BZA, as well as through various permitting that would make sure that this pool isn't any more flood danger than any other pool that exists, many of which exist in Charleston. And then finally, I guess I would argue that the sound of children playing in the pool, temporary construction noise, and leaving cardboard in our cul-de-sac are also not instances of substantial detriment.
Okay. Anyone have a question? Mr. Devine. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here tonight to speak in favor of this application? Anyone to speak in favor? All right, seeing none, I'll now ask, is anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Okay. Ma'am, if you'll come first and tell us your name and your address.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for your service. My name is...
You can pull that little microphone down to you if you'd
Thanks,
like to.
I'm short.
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for your service.
Okay.
My name is Aggie Ratliff Moore. I reside at 650 Stoneborough Court, Charleston 29412.
Okay.
I am here to strongly oppose this pool placement. I am at lot 105. I don't know if you need to see this map. If Ms. Working can pull that up, I don't know. But again, I'm strongly opposing this. This is in order to defend my family's property and our livability. There are so many potential impacts for this pool placement, not just on my family, but our sweet little neighborhood that we only have 18 homes. No one has a pool. All the lots they are different, as you can see. Nobody has a lot that's the same. The lots haven't changed. Our HOA laws haven't changed. It makes no sense to put this pool in the placement where the applicant wants to. We already have poor drainage, as you can see. I think there were some pictures that were submitted that we already have flooding issues as it is. Our applicant that wants to put the pool in has already put placements of raised planters. Their yard is shaped like a V with a drainage easement at the end. They placed those planters and blocked the drainage flow and flooded our yard already. So we already know that our yard will flood. And this is exactly where he wants to put the pool. The planters, some of the planters were removed. There are pictures where there is a planter that you can still see at the sharp angle. Thank you for removing the planters and for letting the water drain so that our yard could dry out and underneath our house. But my point is, the planters flooded the yard. He wants to put a pool right there. How easy is it going to be to move the pool when our yard and our home is flooded? That's not fair to me as a homeowner, as my family, or possible resale value. I mean, what am I supposed to say? My neighbor put a pool and it floods my yard every time we get a light rain. I mean, I have to disclose that if we ever potentially wanted to move. That's not livable conditions. That's unfair to us. I would also like to add that the proximity of the pool, as you heard Ms. Jenny, I think she said 9 feet. I'm going to have a pool, our whole backside of our house, looks over into our pool because, as you can see, the angle of the yard. So it's not just our screen porch, it's our living room, it's our dining room, it's my bedroom. The sound of pool pumps all night with the possible, I don't know, are there going to be lights going through not just my bedroom, but the entire backside of my home? I mean, in all sense, it just makes no common sense to me whatsoever. And once again, my trees are right there. My trees' roots go into his yard. We purchased this home. I think Miss Sally may have pictures of our grand trees. Why do my trees have to be killed? And then who's going to be responsible if the trees die? Am I responsible for that? I don't know. It's just, there's just so many things that don't make sense, and I'm sure my husband will add a few, but this is one of the reasons why we purchased our lot, is because the trees are so grand, and I don't know. I don't know what else I can add to just, I don't know, just the lack of privacy, because not just on his part, but our part too. I mean, every time I look out my window or walk out my screen porch, I'm literally looking over them because our houses are raised like a lifeguard. You know, I'm sorry, if I wanted to be a lifeguard, I work at the county park. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be a dragon lady, but if at all possible, move the pool on the other side, cut down your trees, don't kill my trees. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Hang on, Ms. Moore.
And yes, ask away.
Does anyone have a question? Go ahead, Mr. Marchant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, ma'am, for coming this evening. Tell me a little bit about this, a little bit more about the HOA changing the rules or not. I mean, the applicant has testified that the rules have been changed. You're testifying, and this is a quasi-judicial body.
Well,
they haven't, so who's right?
So that brings us to an interesting situation. So our HOA voted on a proposal quote from an attorney, supposedly attorney. Our HOA president reached out to that attorney and got a response with, that quote did not come from my office. I don't know where it came from. So our neighborhood HOA voted on a forged fraudulent document that was not from the attorney proposed by our neighbor. And then our HOA president proceeded to go forward with that vote, even though it was brought to attention to some of the residents that what we voted on was not indeed from the attorney. So I don't know how you can present that document from attorney and then the attorney actually say it didn't come from me, and then our HOA president then proceed with changing our bylaws, like red flags everywhere. You'll have to speak to the attorney. I don't know how someone can, use your name and address and present it to a HOA community and then allow the bylaws to be changed. I don't know. So that in itself, our HOA says that no pools can be on the side of the house, maybe to benefit people like me so that we're not overlooking them like lifeguards. But hopefully I've answered that. I don't know how that happened. I don't know the legalities of that. You'll have to ask the attorney himself.
Thank you.
I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, anyone else have a question? Go ahead, Mr. Jordan.
If he built a pool on the other side, would you be for it or against it?
That's fine. Yes, and actually that's the reason why I'm not a dragon lady neighbor. I feel like if it's your property, you should be able to have a pool, but not 9 feet from my bedroom.
There a house on that side too?
There is, and it's they rent that house, and as of right now, I think there are new renters that have been there approximately 2-3 weeks. Maybe 3 weeks, but they rent that house. I think the owners just moved to Atlanta. So like I said, they're renters and they just moved in. But yes, I'm all for, I do believe that you should be able to do what you want with your property, but you can't flood the neighborhood and you can't flood your neighbor's yard, especially when you've already done it. So if it doesn't flood the other people's yard, then I have no problem with the pool going on the other side. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions?
Any further questions from the board? Thank you, Ms. Moore. All right, sir, come on up. If you would, please state your name and address.
Richard Moore. I also reside at 650 Stoneborough.
Yes, sir.
This is my wife. So a couple key points here is that because of, I don't know, what really strikes me about the whole thing is that, number one is the trees are so close to the property line, and ultimately our trees could die or be damaged or die, fall wherever, could fall in the pool, could fall on a child or whatever, just close to the pool, because these trees are 50, 60 feet tall. And so who's going to be responsible if this tree falls that I had no control over on how it died? I understand that nature or lightning strike or something like that, I would be responsible to get the tree cut down. But when I didn't have the decision whether or not to kill my tree, and it's not from God, who's going to be responsible for any damage, whether it's my house, neighbor's house, God forbid, a child or whatever? And I also want to bring up the point about the trees is that in the process of preparing for this pool area, they contracted a tree trimmer to come in and already cut branches hanging over on their side. So they cut the branches down that they felt were hanging, and they damaged my fence. So a whole day went by, and nobody informed me that my fence was damaged from this. So I had to confront the neighbors that your tree company damaged my fence. And so at that point, it's okay, so yeah, we'll get somebody to fix your fence. So they proceeded to contact the tree company to fix my fence. Not a fence company, but a tree company to fix my fence. And they were going to do a patch job with 2 panels where the middle stringer of the fence was broken. You just can't put 2 vertical panels on it. And so they're going to just like makeshift repair it. All right, so the fence company they came out, replaced the whole panel, and then it was crooked. So now I had the whole fence was like the horizontal supports were at an angle. It didn't even match the rest of the fence. So I had to go out there and I had to repair my own fence. So in the whole record of, is how is this construction going to take place? Is anyone going to own up and have any responsibility for my property being damaged and let me know immediately? Having the right people to do the job, I have no confidence in that whatsoever. Secondary to that is that because of the trees, my trees aren't as important as their trees, as you heard in the testimony. So why I feel my trees are way more important than his trees or their trees, but they have a whole other side that they don't want to damage their trees.
I'm going to have to stop you right there.
Okay.
We've run out of time. I will ask you to wait for a minute. Anyone on the board have a question for Mr. Moore? All right. Mr. Moore, if you'll have a seat. Okay. Is anyone else to speak in opposition in this matter? No one else. Okay. At this time, will the applicant please come back up? You have 2 minutes to respond to the concerns of the opposition. If you guys state your name and address again, please.
Philip Devine, 656 Stoneborough Court, Charleston, South Carolina, 29412. So a handful of things. We're kind of being painted as these evil neighbors doing, these illegal things to get a pool, which also there was another incident where all 3 agencies came to our home and were told that we were digging a pool and cutting down trees when we weren't. This has been ongoing for over a year, even, going back to, with our attorney, which Mr. Matt Slocum is indeed an attorney and is the one who recorded the changes to the bylaws. We're kind of going through emails over the course of a year's worth of communications, which is kind of how long this has been dragged out, and trying to create a story of us doing something nefarious or illegal when nothing like that happened. And Mr. Slocum is indeed the one who recorded the changes to our bylaws. We're talking a lot about these hypotheticals like biblical style flooding as the result of a pool, which I don't think there's any evidence for nor even precedence for. Also, that it will kill these trees, which were significantly farther away from these trees than is even best practice, which I believe, to my knowledge, is 15 feet, and we're going to be more than that away from their trees. The alternative of not just endangering our trees, but literally having to cut down our trees on the other side, and then also having the exact same situation as the neighbor, honestly shows lack of care for the other neighbors, that they would wish for the pool to go on the other side, even though they're purporting that the pool will cause flooding, which I think doesn't make a lot of sense, really. Also, who's ever heard of a pool pump keeping you up at night? And as far as the privacy, we have agreed that the 15-foot vegetation along the fence line is definitely something that we're open to and would continue to address as other issues come up. Thank you.
Okay, hold on one second. Anyone have a question? Go ahead, Mr. Jordan.
So why don't you build a pool on the other side?
Because we would have to cut down our trees on the other side.
So she would lose trees or you would lose trees?
We're not losing any trees.
But she's concerned about it.
But we're not cutting any trees down.
Thank
Nor are we near the trees, at least as per best practices for tree care and pools, which I think stipulates 6 feet at a minimum. 15 feet is best practice, and we're more than 15 feet away from their trees.
How about the middle of the yard?
So we don't have a middle. That's kind of the whole idea, that we need to make this not to the rear because we don't have a rear of a yard. It's just 2 side yards.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
All right. This time, we'll close this matter to the public, and I will ask this board, do we have a motion?
May I ask a question first of staff?
Okay.
So I have 2 questions. One, could anybody comment on the trees? It's hard to tell from the aerial where the drip line of the trees along the fence lands, and if we assume the drip line is about the same as the root line, you can tell me better. So that's my first question. And my second one is, I know in the application this HOA ordinance is in there, but does staff have any kind of record of whether it's amended or not? So I guess tree question first.
Yes, I did visit the site, and there aren't any protected or grand trees. There are sweet gum and maple trees. And although the sweet gum is definitely larger than 24 inches, it is a very, very big sweet gum tree. With the width away from the property line on their property and the neighbor's property, I mean, it seems like the trees will be, I don't have a measurement, but at least 15 feet probably from the cavity of the pool. Is it great? Maybe not necessarily will the trees die. I don't know that that's the case either, but so we don't have a plan survey with the trees located, so it's difficult for me to say how far they are since I don't have that sort of information.
Mr. Martin, as to your second question, the recording is in our documents, properly filed and recorded at the Register of Deeds office back in April of this year.
But not the amendment.
That is
I'm
the
here.
amendment, yes.
Yeah, that was the
Oh, it is?
amendment.
It actually says it struck the requirement for it to
Sorry.
be on the site. You just had to read in there. It was.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, thank you for, I was reading it and I guess not seeing the change in the language.
The amendment was to delete that requirement.
Okay,
Where
I
the,
see it
where
now.
the pool
Yep.
had to go.
Thank you.
All right.
So that's worth the record, I guess, for clarification.
It looks like it was notarized and properly received and recorded by the ROD office.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or I guess I'll go back to asking, can we have a motion to approve or disapprove this application? No takers. Well, I guess this time I'll make a motion. I'm going to move that we deny the motion as it does not meet, back at the criteria here. I don't believe that it meets criteria 6, that the variance does not result in applicant's own actions. I understand the applicant doesn't want to cut down any trees, but these are not grand trees. They certainly, some could be removed, and that he could put his swimming pool on that side rather than the other side. So I think he's making a decision of where he would like to have the pool.
He would still need a variance from that, though.
Because of the other side, right?
Yes.
Well, and we don't have the other neighbor here tonight because that was not what was put forward. Let me hold on for a second here. In that case, I will go that it doesn't meet criteria 4, that the authorization of variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property. I think the neighbors have made, a reasonable argument that the ordinance otherwise prohibits pools from being on the sides of homes, even though that the HOA ordinance was amended. I think they have concerns with flooding. I think the increased impervious area over there with the concrete that would go around the pool would contribute to potential increase in runoff. So I'll make the motion that it does not meet criteria 4 for denial. That's my motion. Is there a second? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Woodall. Any discussion?
I agree with you. I think my discussion would be maybe to encourage the applicant to explore the other location, including discussing that with your neighbor and maybe even getting the civil engineer involved in water management, because I like you, am worried about flooding more than I am trees in this situation, understanding the low-lying conditions of that neighborhood in general. So perhaps the applicant can find a solution.
I will add to your position on that. As you note, there's a ditch over on that side for the whole purpose of drainage, and any runoff could be diverted to that ditch for that purpose. And so it certainly seems more suitable, but agreed with staff that they would still have to come back for a variance. But I think those are 2 different variances with 2 different sets of conditions, for or against. Any further discussion by this board? Hearing none, at this time I will ask for a vote. All those in favor of the motion to deny this application for a variance, please signify by raising your right hand, and saying aye. Aye. Vote was unanimous to deny it. Sorry, Mr. Devine, it did not. Your application was not approved, but you're certainly welcome to reach out to staff to see what other alternatives may be available. But you'll be notified officially in 10 days after this hearing from staff. And I think that concludes all of our cases for this evening. So now I guess Ms. Working.
So we are going to have 1 to 2 old business cases for September 12th. We received many applications, but decided because there is a planning commission meeting that we're only going to schedule 7 new business applications, because your October meeting is just 3 weeks after September 12th. So the remainder of the cases that try to make it in for September are going to go to October. So we do this time we would like to keep the start time at 5.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Just a reminder about training, and I'll talk to you, Mr. Jordan, about that later.
Okay. Well, I'd like to recognize.
He does have time because it's a year from his term, so he's got plenty of time.
Well, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Ms. Applewhite, joining our staff, and also to Mr. Jordan, our new board member. Welcome, and look forward to working with y'all. And hearing nothing else, this board stands adjourned.
You too, sir.
Look forward to working with you.
Yeah, I like the technology too. Nice work.
To meet you, sir.